Okay, hello. Welcome to History Chats this afternoon. Hey, uh, this is going to be a pre-recorded thing. If you're watching this, it means that, likelihood I am unable to get to the Historical Society and have decided to take a snow day, as it's currently snowing, and doesn't look like it's going to stop for a while. So, um, but we do have a program here. We've been looking at different examples of civics lessons, I guess, is kind of how we're thinking of this. Examples of local government at different levels, um, and how they, some examples here. What is a county board? What is a municipality, town, city, village? And today I thought, at the beginning when we chose all of this, I thought, hey, you know what? We should talk about the county code, right? That's the document that basically lays out who should be doing what, right? And what the powers of the county, government should be. Well, yes, that kind of does that. Now, I will start this with a bit of a disclaimer. Sorry, not a bit of a disclaimer, but a big disclaimer. Um, I really don't know. I have done my best as a historian to try to, and I guess as a citizen of this county, to try and understand this. But realistically speaking, I didn't give myself enough time to really understand what is a very nuanced and important document. I am not a lawyer. I'm not somebody who deals with this on a regular basis. Goes without saying this is not legal advice. I don't know why any of this would be legal advice, but disclaimer there. Um, I'm going to do my best here. This is also a program that, sometimes this happens where you put together an idea in your head. You're like, this is going to make for a good program. And sometimes it does. And sometimes I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I could have taken another day here. So maybe if you're watching this, you're not watching this, but we're doing it live, I will, maybe do it once or twice and figure out a little bit more here. But for the sake of a backup, we're gonna see how this goes. So that said, oh, also just a quick disclaimer. I don't actually have a physical copy of the county code. What I've been using is actually a antiquated copy of the ordinances of the city of Wausau from the 20s, I think, 30s, early 30s. Felt like it needed something, substantial to illustrate this, but I don't think we have a physical copy of the county code as it stands, although it is certainly available. Um, in fact, here it is. This is the county code ordinances as laid out. It is posted. I just have the direct link here. I'll put a link in the description of the video. But you can also find it by going to the Marathon County government webpage, and find it there. It is hosted here on this site, librarymunicode.com, which does a lot of municipal codes and ordinances for different counties and cities and villages, including Wausau and Lincoln County, Merrill, Mosinee, a bunch of places. Anyway, but this is the counties, and this is essentially what it is. Basically, what is a county code? It is the county code of ordinances is the document. It's like the bylaws for the county. It establishes, okay, what is the government? What is it run by? What are the committees, the governing body? A lot of this is kind of going to be very similar to other counties because a lot of it is dictated by the state statutes of saying you need to have these things. But actually, surprisingly, a lot of this, including its organization, is not super universal throughout everybody. But that's okay. There's my disclaimer again. So the county code. Well, what does it actually do? If you actually go through the table of contents, you'll see it's kind of a framework, right? Like I said, how is it organized? Who's in charge of what? What are they chosen to do? How are they chosen? Are they elected? Are they appointed? That sort of thing. Committees, that sort of thing. Finances, let's get the important stuff of how the bills get paid, and to an extent of handling the financial side of things, as well as personnel. I kind of skipped over that, but dealing with the individuals who work in the government. law enforcement, the sheriff's office, the jail, the court system, traffic, um, maintain a bunch of roads, the county level, for sure. Health and safety issues and institutions and things that are going to be involved at that level. Parks and forests that are specifically owned and maintained by the government of the county. The county. I don't know that I need to say the government of the county. It's kind of unnecessary. Zoning issues. That's a big one, of course, at every level of government. You gotta get your permits and all of that stuff. Licenses. Is it zoned for this, that? Airports is an interesting one. Not every. Well, we'll talk about airports in a bit. Something that might be helpful to articulate here, and this is one of the areas that I had struggled with, but we'll do our best. So in terms of levels of government, obviously we got the federal government that oversees the 50 states, territories, districts of the United States of America. Within that, you have some things that are going to be dedicated by the government at large. Some of it's going to be left up to individual states to kind of manage what's happening there. And so we have a state government then in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, then, you have their own system of laws, our own system of laws that hopefully doesn't conflict too much with the federal and other states, but that's kind of the nature of things as they go. And as far as local government, then, we have 72 counties, of which Marathon County is one. And that is basically, now we're at the local governments, right? So you have the county, and then we have the municipalities. Now, the municipalities exist sort of under the blanket of the county, but also part of, as we'll see. What the county code, how much of this does the county code, this document actually apply to? Well, in some ways, all of it, in some ways, some of it. And this is one of the things that I was kind of struggling with. And my goal here is, even though I'm not an expert on this, I think I've come to an understanding, and I'm going to try to walk through some examples. I think it's important to note that I am not an expert on everything. Sometimes you need to do your best, and maybe you can see some of the process here of, okay, how do we go about answering this question? In reality, it really doesn't. In functionality, like the difference between an incorporated place and unincorporated place, it really comes down to the specific examples, and that's beyond the purview of what we're doing today. But yeah, that's kind of the deal there. So where does the county code apply? Well, for starters, on explicitly county-owned property. The courthouse, and things like that, the county trunk roads. Now, a lot of the roads of the county are either owned by local municipalities, townships, village, cities, or the state federal highway system. But there are some, important county trunk roads, forests that are maintained, parks, things like that. These are areas that are definitely owned and maintained by the county. And so a lot of the county code dedicates itself to maintaining that, laying out the rules and regulations for these things. Let's see here. One of these tabs has, nope, that's not it. So here, for example, in the county code, there is the traffic code, right? And in the traffic code, it has things like, speed limits. Some of the, okay, it's important to note that the state laws are adopted. If there's a state law on traffic relating to traffic, it applies in Marathon County. Some specific things might be important to note. Things like dedicating what speed limits. The state doesn't really want to tell us, how fast you can go on, county highway and in the village of Marathon City, in the vicinity of it. So naming, maintaining that stuff, so speed limits, stop signs, where in the county has exactly three-way stops in the county road system. Well, they're all articulated here, so there'd be three-way stop signs on these places. So you can see that there's some level here of specificity that we won't necessarily see in other areas that the county code touches, because this is kind of the purview of the county system, and the code that we're talking about. So there's also some things that the county oversees because it's sort of programs that they operate. So the airport and healthcare center, for example, kind of fit this. The county does not operate the airport, but it is a cooperative effort between Marathon County and others to maintain it. One of the really interesting examples here is the airport. So, for example, there's a whole chapter 23 in the county code about the airport. Here's the rules and regulations, demonstrations. Here's the restricted areas and all of these sort of things. So because they kind of have purview there. What I didn't expect, and actually, this is an area that I didn't really. I'm not entirely sure why, but some counties, or actually, I should say, this is an area that the state doesn't seem to like. Some of these things, these chapters, are basically the state says, okay, as a county government, you need to address these things, right? Or it makes sense. Maybe the state doesn't explicitly say you have to have a section in your county code and ordinances about, the public works, for example. But they definitely don't about airports because some places do and some places don't. So this applies, by the way, Chapter 23 specifically to the airport in Mosinee, the Central Wisconsin Airport. What I didn't expect is that in Portage County, which has their code of ordinances on their website as well, they also have a chapter dedicated to the Central Wisconsin Airport and the regulations. Even though it's not in literally the airport is in the confines of Marathon County. But again, it's a cooperative effort, and so because it is a larger issue, sometimes it's helpful to have different people have those rules and regulations stated. What my point in bringing up the airport and everything is to show that it is one thing that the county has a big say in, whereas, for example, they don't go into detail about the Alexander Municipal Airport in Wausau. That is kind of left for the city of Wausau to regulate to the extent that they need to. But also, things change. They're not ordinances, Court of Ordinances are not cookie cutter from place to place. And I think that does a good job of explaining it. So the county code also applies in many cases to wherever municipalities don't make an attempt to try and change things. So some things are pretty obvious that a city, the city of Wausau or Mosinee is going to have their own rules about that don't necessarily have much say in the county. We'll talk about an example of this at the end, but for example, zoning is something that applies to everybody, right? And in the Code of Ordinances, let's see if I can find which one this is here. Yeah, okay. So there's a zoning chapter here. We click on this, and it basically, they don't list everything out here, but they say, go to the, specifically the zoning and regulatory department. And we can click zoning. There actually is a, oh, here, I'll just bring this part over here. There is a PDF that has just the general code of ordinances, and this applies essentially to the county outside of, in this case, and this is an example of, I know a little bit enough to get me in trouble here, but I know that like in the 1970s, there was a big, 60s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, there was a discussion about whether, things like zoning for the county, is that something that all the people that are affected, like the townships, have to weigh in on? Or, as in the case here, the general code that's established for the county establishes everywhere unless they opt in to create their own system. So for example, in 1973, the town of Emmett decided to create their own zoning code to refer to their area, as opposed to not to address issues and to be more responsive to their needs, as opposed to using the larger county code that existed. Various reasons you might want to do this or not want to do this, but in this case they had to opt in, and not all of the county codes, not all of the townships in Marathon County at this point had approved and decided to directly make their own thing. But just to give you an idea here, the general codes. If I wanted to open a bed and breakfast, there is a county or a car wash. The things about signage, definitions. There are things that are being laid out in the county because this is important to know. But what is defined a bed and breakfast and these things may change if say the village of Edgar or the city of Wausau or the town of Emmett decides that they want to make their own version of this to specifically address the regulation of a bed and breakfast or a car wash or a drive-through facility. And there's a lot more here in the county code. There's 227 pages, so I'm not going to dip my feet too deeply into that. We'll just kind of move on. And again, the county code of ordinances sets some things up that do apply to the county until they don't. And some things, make sense. County jail and court system, for example, is something that the county operates. And again, if we go back to the oh, I deleted it. That's fine. Sort of the general thing here. There's stuff in here about law enforcement. Things like lodging for county jail prisoners. We got regulations and things like that, and the court system as well. That's not to say that a local municipality can't have their own system. Again, similarly, you could decide, and I don't know about the procedure, so this might not be as simple a matter of just saying, oh, nope, we're good, we're going to do our own thing. But I do know historically over the 20th century, certainly like the city of Wausau has its own police department, right? And they would work with the county sheriff's department and other, law enforcement, of course, but that might, be different. Not every village, I think, village and cities typically do. Technically speaking, a town can hire a constable and build a jail. It's not super common these days for a town to have their own jail cell. So generally they defer in a lot of these areas to the county in this case. But there was periods where there was a jail in Fenwood, I think, for example, had one. For whatever reason, they had a constable on the payroll. So, but the county code does, of course, for those situations, and regardless of whether you have a city police department or whatever, the county is going to maintain these sort of things because that's stuff that is dedicated and mandated, I suppose, by the state statutes as well. Here's a timely example also of sort of the counter here. It is currently snowing. When this goes live, it might still be snowing. Who knows? There is an obligation in many places that you have to keep your sidewalks clean, right? This is an example, obviously wooden sidewalks in Edgar from the 1910 or so, maybe around there. Got to keep those sidewalks clean. Even municipalities have their own. So actually, speaking of which, nope, that's the up signs. That's the wrong one. There we go. Here is the village ordinance for Edgar. Obviously, this is not today, but if it was, and even back then, here we go. Snow and ice removal. So section 6-2-8, hey, within 24 hours after the end of a snow or sleet fall, you gotta get your snow and ice removed from the sidewalks. And here's the difficult, if you don't, here's the fee will be charged. This doesn't go into specific of how much that'll be. That is not really the purpose here, but it's there in Edgar, it's there here in Wausau, cleaning the sidewalks. It's in Weston, it could keep going. Most places that have sidewalks that are under the purview of the local municipality, whether it's a village or a city, will. Oddly enough, this county does not have certainly that we talk about sidewalks and their regulations and rules about blocking sidewalks and where they can be built and can't be built. But there is no county. The county won't come after you if you don't clean the snow off of your sidewalks, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Although I don't know why you would have sidewalks that the county would, generally you'd be in a village or a city at that point. But I don't know, it just felt like a timely example, what with the snowstorm, that I am currently making a backup just in case I can't do it tomorrow. Hey, there you go. Also, I'm just gonna do a plug here. Part of the reason that, well, we have a program coming up. Next month, I'm going to be doing the History Speaks on public transportation, and I've been looking into sidewalks. So I thought, oh, this is kind of interesting. Let's see what the definitions are. So talking about sidewalks to the modern motor buses, just a plug for that, I guess, here. But also, again, if you're doing research into something like this can be kind of handy to understand the definitions of who's responsible for all of these things. Mainly, I just wanted to take the opportunity to plug it, I guess. I don't know. So there you go. There's a very brief overview, not particularly that far depth. Hopefully, was this interesting? Was this helpful? Did you know about the County Code of Ordinances or not? Did I make any mistakes? I hope not, but feel free to tell me in the comments if I did. And yeah, that kind of wraps up our month here of civics lessons, if you want to call it that. We're going to go back to an old favorite next month. Next week, we're going to start up with, once again, March Madness, as it is March. And so, yeah, let's go back to the well of a very fun theme here of looking at some maps, and what they say, what you can use them for, and some local history told through them. Next week, Gary is gonna. We haven't finalized, so we'll keep an eye out for this. But I believe we're going to be looking at using some maps to show some communities that either aren't there but were in the past, or perhaps are there but aren't on the map. Just to kind of, there are limitations sometimes to what maps show, and sometimes they're there, and sometimes they're not. So, do maps lie? We'll have to see next week when Gary tells us all about it. And we have some other fun map-related stories lined up that we'll talk more about in the future. So there you go. Hope everybody is safe and warm and all of that. Again, who knows how bad the snow is actually going to be? I'm speaking to you well in advance of when this will go live, but just in case, yeah. Hope you're enjoying the day. Thanks for tuning in and watching and listening to me ramble a little bit about a topic that I knew relatively little about, but had an interesting time learning about for you. And again, hopefully that all made sense. I'm gonna stop now and let you go about your day and get back to mine, and I guess go shovel off my car and go home. So have a wonderful afternoon or evening or morning. Just going to draw this out as long as possible. Bye. See you next time.